Red Nose, Part 1, The Appearance. They say that evil wears many faces, but no one ever told me it could wear a bright red nose and a smile that never moved. My name's Marcus, Mark, to everyone who knows me. I'm 16, and I live in St. Alora's Catholic Orphanage. It's a cold, gray place built back in the 1800s. You know, the kind of building where the walls feel like they're always listening. But it's home, or at least the closest thing to it. My days are usually the same: school, chores, then a few hours with my friends before curfew. My crew? We're a loud, chaotic mess. Coraline, the smartest and easily the most beautiful girl in the group. She's my crush, not that I'd ever say it out loud. Then there's Daryl, my best friend since we were 8. Tall, dark-skinned, funny, and the chillest person alive. Matt and Corey, polar opposites. Matt's the muscle, always carrying Corey's scrawny little nerd self around like luggage. Stacy's too glamorous for this place, or so she thinks. Grace is quiet, soft-spoken, always hiding behind her hair and glasses. And finally, the twins, Jack and Jamie, mischievous little pranksters. You could never tell them apart if it weren't for the mole on Jack's cheek. That day started like any other. Breakfast in the old stone dining hall, then off to Bishop Francis High. Coraline sat across from me on the bus, neat bun in place, green eyes buried in her textbook. She always looked too serious for someone our age. "You're staring again," Daryl muttered beside me, smirking. "I'm not," I replied, too quickly. "Right, and I'm the Pope." The day passed in a blur: geometry with Mrs. Delacroix, who still pronounced my name wrong, and history with Mr. Rye, Bennett, who smelled like soup. After school, we went back to the orphanage, played some basketball on the cracked court behind the chapel, and hung out until Sister June rang the bell for evening prayers. That's when it started. As I walked back to my dorm, I saw something, just a flash at the corner of my eye, a blur of white and red ducking behind a hallway corner. I spun around. Nothing. I waited. Still nothing. Maybe it was one of the twins pulling a prank. I brushed it off. I shouldn't have. The next day, something felt wrong. Everyone was at lunch, sitting on the field near the fence, but I felt restless, like something was watching me. I didn't want to admit it, but I kept glancing behind me, half expecting to see that blur again. After school, instead of heading back through town, I took a shortcut through the old trail behind the orphanage. The forest. The deeper I walked, the quieter everything got. Birdsong stopped. The wind didn't rustle the trees. Even my footsteps felt muted, like the ground didn't want to make a sound. That's when I saw him. About 20 feet ahead, a figure standing dead still between two trees. It looked like a clown, but wrong. The body was human-shaped, but it was like something pretending to be human. The face was stiff and too symmetrical. Its eyes were wide, unblinking. The red nose on its face looked fresh, too bright, almost wet. Its clothes were colorful but faded, like they were decades old. And its smile, it wasn't moving, just stretched across its face like it had been painted on with a knife. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. Then it tilted its head slowly, like it was studying me. I bolted. Didn't stop until I was back inside the orphanage, heart punching my ribs. I knew I saw something. I knew it. That night, I called a meeting. We all met in the attic above the boys' dorm, our hangout spot. Coraline sat on a crate, arms folded, skeptical. Daryl leaned on the wall, munching chips. The others gathered around. "I saw something, in the woods," I said, catching my breath. "A bear?" Matt guessed. "No, a clown, a thing. It wasn't human." "A clown?" Stacy scoffed. "Like red nose and floppy shoes? What, did you trip and hit your head?" It was real. Its nose was bright red, and it didn't move, like it was pretending to be a person. Corey adjusted his glasses. Could be a pareidolia effect. You know, the brain sees faces in random patterns. "It wasn't my brain, Corey. It looked at me. It knew I was there." Coraline leaned forward. "You're sure?" I nodded. "Then we go," Daryl said simply. "Tomorrow, after classes." The next day, just before sundown, we made the walk. 20 minutes into the forest, flashlights in hand, shoes crunching on dead leaves. We searched. For over an hour. Nothing. "Maybe it left," Grace said softly. "No," I said. "It's here. Let's split," Coraline suggested. "Cover more ground." Bad idea. But we did it. Me and Coraline. Daryl with Stacy, Matt with Grace. The twins went off on their own, giggling like it was all a big joke. We searched for maybe 15 more minutes. Then the screaming started. It was faint at first, a blood-curdling shriek that echoed through the woods. We all regrouped near the old creek. "Jack? Jamie?" Matt called, his voice shaking. Then we saw it. Near a patch of broken trees where the soil was disturbed, their bodies, twisted, mutilated. One of them, Jack, I think, was missing his legs. The other's chest was torn open like paper, and there were bite marks, not normal ones. Wide, jagged, like from a mouth too big for a face. Near them, carved into the tree in what looked like dried blood, was a crude drawing of a clown face, with one thing colored in bright red, the nose. Grace started sobbing. Corey turned green and vomited behind a bush. Coraline gripped my arm so hard her nails dug into my skin. "We need to go," Daryl said, voice low. "Now." We ran. No one said a word until we were back at the orphanage. At 8:02 p.m., we locked ourselves in the library. We had to know. We couldn't go to the police, not after sneaking out and leaving the scene. They wouldn't believe us anyway. Corey pulled books on folklore, local legends, anything he could find. We spread them out across the table, the air thick with fear and silence. And that's when we found it. In a journal from 1947, written by a priest who once ran the orphanage, open quote, "A red-nosed devil haunts the woods, takes the form of a clown, a mimic of joy, hiding rot. I've seen it. I've seen its eyes, empty. It takes children, always the children." Close quote. We looked at each other. No one said a word. We didn't have to. Something was coming for us. And we had just begun. Part 2, Fighting Back. The library smelled like dust and old secrets. It was past 8 p.m., and none of us had the courage to sleep. Not after what we saw. Not after what happened to Jack and Jamie. Their deaths weren't just murders. They were messages. We were being hunted. Corey flipped another yellowed page in the priest's old journal. He hadn't said a word in over 10 minutes, but his eyes were wide, scanning like a machine. "Found something," he finally said. We gathered around the table. "It says here, the mimic may wear the face of joy, but it cannot stand reflections of innocence." Coraline frowned. "What does that mean?" Corey tapped the line again. "That's the thing, it's vague. But look, there's a sketch here. A silver bell with crosses carved into it says the sound clears the air of his deceit." Daryl leaned in. "You think this bell thing can hurt it?" "I think," Corey said slowly, "that it's one of the weaknesses." Mark nodded. "That's all we need. If this thing can bleed, it can die." "But we only know one weakness," Grace whispered. "What if it's not enough?" Corey sighed. "The rest of the page was ripped out. We might not have another choice." The next night, we made a plan. Using Corey's diagram and the journal's descriptions, we fashioned a replica of the bell. Small, silver, with tiny crosses etched into its sides. Coraline used thread from her rosary. Daryl tied it to an old wooden stick like a baton. "We're really doing this?" Stacy asked, arms crossed. She hadn't spoken much since the twins died. "We have to," I said, "before it picks us off one by one." We returned to the woods near the old creek, the same place the twins were killed. It was just past 6 p.m. The sun was low, painting the forest in orange shadows. The air was thick with silence again. We moved slowly, flashlights off, listening, waiting. Then we heard it. Laughter, not playful, mocking, dry and hollow, like it hadn't come from a throat in decades. "Daryl," I whispered, "hit the bell." He raised the baton and shook it hard. Ding, ding, ding. The sound was clear and sharp. For a moment, the trees shivered. The air rippled like heat rising off asphalt. And then we saw him. Red nose. He emerged from behind a tree like a statue sliding forward. Same human-shaped body, same stretched smile, same blood-bright nose. But he was twitching, violently. "It's working," Corey breathed. "The bell." Red Nose suddenly shrieked, a high, ear-piercing screech that made Grace drop to her knees and clutch her ears. His face cracked, literally cracked, like porcelain splitting. From inside, something darker pulsed. And then, he changed. The skin melted, slid off like wet fabric. He grew, wider, fatter, bloated. His body swelled to nearly 800 pounds of rotting flesh. His clown suit stretched and split at the seams. His arms became stubby and thick, veins bulging like cables. His stomach gurgled, then split open, revealing a massive circular mouth filled with sharp, baby-like teeth. Hundreds of them, all gnashing. Stage 2. "Oh my God," Stacy whispered. Then he lunged. He ignored the bell, slammed straight into Matt. It happened too fast. The creature tackled him, crushing him into the mud. Matt punched and kicked, trying to shove it off. But Red Nose's gut mouth opened and bit down on his shoulder. Matt screamed. Blood sprayed into the leaves like a hose. He tried to crawl, tried to get away, but the monster grabbed him, slammed him down again, and bit into his face. A terrible crunch echoed through the woods. "Matt!" Stacy shrieked. We all froze. Coraline grabbed my arm, eyes wide with shock. "No, no!" Stacy dropped to her knees, sobbing violently, reaching out like she could pull him back. "Get off him! You bastard!" Daryl grabbed her, yanking her away just as Red Nose finished chewing. Matt wasn't moving. Half his head was gone. Stacy screamed like her lungs were splitting apart. He was supposed to be safe. He was supposed to protect me. Corey shouted, "We need to move. Now! Go!" I screamed. We ran, through the branches, over roots. The bell clanged uselessly as Daryl shook it. Red Nose didn't even flinch now. The sound no longer hurt him, because we had only found one weakness. We barely made it back to the orphanage, slamming the iron gates behind us, panting, sweating, some of us crying. Stacy collapsed on the grass, her face red and soaked with tears. Grace sat beside her, trying to comfort her, but clearly just as broken. Coraline stared into the distance, silent. Daryl looked at me, jaw clenched. "I think," Corey said quietly, "each weakness works on a different form, like levels in a game. We beat stage 1, and he changed. Now we need the next weakness." I nodded. "But we don't have the other pages." Coraline turned slowly. "Then we find them." No one said it, but we all felt it. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was war. Part 3. The Hunt Begins. The sun was barely rising, but no one in St. Augustine Orphanage had slept. Matt was gone. Stacy hadn't left the chapel since she collapsed there hours ago. She was curled up in front of the altar, whispering prayers between sobs. Grace stayed close, always glancing toward the stained glass window like it might shatter. The rest of us were in the library. Again, the candlelight flickered across our faces as we sat around the same dusty table. The journal splayed open. The pages ended abruptly where they had been torn. "We need those missing pages," I said, my voice low. "We don't even know where they are," Daryl muttered. His face was tight with pain, grief mixing with frustration. Coraline was scanning another book. What if they were removed on purpose? "For what?" Corey asked. "To protect people or to keep the clown alive?" Then Grace walked in, holding something in her trembling hands. I found this. It was under the twins' mattress." She set it down. It was a folded envelope, sealed with a strange wax symbol, a distorted clown face with an X through its eyes. Corey opened it slowly. Inside, a page, burned at the edges, almost shredded, but still readable. It was the missing journal entry. He read aloud, open quote, "Stage 2 feasts on strength and muscle. It grows bloated from power, not fear. Its second weakness lies in the opposite of what fuels it, helplessness, simplicity, the innocent act of surrender. The creature cannot process or feed off what it cannot comprehend. Something so simple, even a baby could do it." Close quote. Coraline blinked. "What the hell does that even mean?" Daryl's eyes lit up. "Guys, what do babies do when they're helpless?" "They cry," Grace whispered. Corey stood up fast. "No, that's it. That's literally it. They cry. And this thing, this stage, feeds on strength, struggle, resistance. It wants the fight." I stared at the page. "So if we don't fight it?" "We cry," Coraline said, catching on. "Or we fake it. We play helpless." "The sound of a baby crying," Corey muttered. "It's not just symbolism. Maybe it's literal." We spent the next day building a trap in the old boiler room below the orphanage. Using a speaker from Father Grayson's old PA system, we found a 3-hour loop of baby cries online. Corey spliced it through a battery-powered amp, tucked behind rusted pipes. We lined the walls with mirrors. Corey's theory, if Red Nose couldn't handle reflections of innocence before, it might weaken him again, at least enough to stall him. "I'll be the bait," Daryl said. "No," I said. "He killed Matt right in front of you. You're too angry. I'm the fastest, and this is my fight too." I looked him in the eyes. "You better not die, man." He just smirked. "I'm too pretty to die." Night fell and he came. We didn't see him arrive. He was just there. Massive, guttural, breathing heavy like a wild hog. His belly teeth clicked together hungrily. Daryl stood in the middle of the room, back turned, pretending to cry. The loop started. "Wah! Wah!" Red Nose paused. His swollen limbs twitched. "Wah! Wah!" He shrieked. It wasn't pain, it was confusion. He didn't understand. The sound was overwhelming, and as we watched from the shadows, his stomach started closing. The teeth retracted, and he staggered, falling to one knee. "Now!" Corey yelled. Coraline flipped on the floodlights. Red Nose reeled back, mirrors reflecting his own grotesque body in every direction. The baby cries got louder. Daryl turned and pulled out the silver bell, swinging it with force. The bell rang. The cries blared. The mirrors shone. Red Nose screamed, truly screamed like his soul was peeling apart. His skin started to bubble, foam at the mouth splitting open, and boom, he exploded into smoke and shadow. Gone. We did it, or so we thought. Daryl collapsed. Blood poured down his side, thick and red. I rushed over and saw a gash running from his shoulder down to his waist. Deep, ragged, like claws had raked through him before Red Nose vanished. He got me. Just before I rang the bell, he coughed. Stay still, Coraline said, pressing gauze from the first aid kit. You're gonna be fine, Dee, I said, my hands shaking as I applied pressure. His face was pale, sweat glistening on his forehead, but he smiled weakly. Y'all better not let that thing win, or I'm haunting your asses. We carried Daryl back to the orphanage and patched him up as best we could. Grace stayed with him while we returned to the library. Something was wrong. The air felt colder. Stacy walked in from the hallway. Her face was white. Her hands were trembling. I just saw him. We froze. What? Coraline asked. Out the window. He's here. We ran to the front room. Standing by the gate was Red Nose. Stage 3. 10 feet tall. His body was slender now, inhumanly so, like a spider forced into a clown costume. His face was stretched tight, too long. His smile was filled with too many teeth, all sharp, all bloodstained. His suit was black and white, pinstripe and covered in dried gore. But the worst part? His eyes. Black voids, no pupils, no whites, just absence. But the nose remained, a blazing, glowing red beacon in the dark. He watched us, no sound, no movement, just watching, waiting. Then he vanished, gone, like smoke. We didn't breathe. He's inside, Corey whispered. Coraline looked around. We're not safe anymore. He's not hiding in the woods. Grace slowly turned to me. Mark, he's hunting us. Red Nose, Part 4. The Nun Shows Herself. The orphanage hadn't felt like home in days. It felt like a grave waiting to be filled. We barricaded the library after Red Nose's third form appeared. No one said it, but we all felt it. He was toying with us now. Daryl lay on a cot in the corner, barely conscious. Stacy stayed beside him, refusing to sleep, her face drained of everything but sorrow. Grace held Corey's arm tightly, her eyes locked on the window like she expected it to bleed shadows. Then, footsteps, deliberate, echoing down the hall. Coraline gripped my arm. You hear that? Before I could answer, the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, tall, imposing, dressed in dark robes. Her veil shadowed most of her face, but her eyes gleamed like mirrors. Sister Evangeline, she was one of the oldest caretakers at St. Augustine's, strict, silent, cold, but never cruel. Until now, she never seemed human. Just a piece of the furniture of this orphanage. What are you doing here? She asked calmly, scanning our faces. I started, but she raised her hand. I know what you're doing, she said. There was something bitter in her voice. Fighting the thing I brought into this place. Silence. We stared at her. You what? Coraline asked, standing up. Sister Evangeline walked slowly to the center of the room. It was 30 years ago, before you were born, before most of you were even a thought in your mother's wombs. She sat down, folding her hands. There was a boy, an orphan, like you, but different, off. He never laughed, never cried. The other children would torment him, and one day they broke him, badly. Her eyes darkened. He summoned something from a book left in the monastery's archives. I should have burned it when I found it, but I was curious. I helped him. I thought it was nothing but ritualistic fantasy. Her voice cracked. Until that clown walked in, Red Nose. He came to punish the world that punished that child. But when the boy died, the entity remained, dormant, watching, until something brought him back. She looked at us. You. We froze. That night you played that childish game with the Ouija board in the attic? You called something, opened a path, and he answered. I blinked. So this is our fault? No, she said gently. This was always going to happen. You were just the spark. Grace whispered, Can we stop him? Sister Evangeline stood, revealing a long silver case she had brought with her. She opened it. Inside, a silver sword, etched with markings that seemed to pulse in the candlelight. This blade, she said, was forged from sacred silver pulled from the altar of the original chapel. It must pierce his heart. Only then can he be banished. Coraline stepped forward. Then we finished this. Later that night, before we left, Coraline pulled me aside. Mark? Her hand found mine. Her cheeks were flushed, her bun messy from the chaos of the last few nights. If we don't make it, don't, I said. We're making it, you and me. She smiled softly. You're stupid. Then she kissed me. A soft, trembling kiss that made my whole chest feel warm for the first time in days. When we pulled away, she touched my cheek. You better come back, I nodded. You too. Not far off, Grace leaned her head on Corey's shoulder. I'm glad I'm not alone, she whispered. Corey stiffened, then placed his hand gently over hers. You never were. We made our stand in the orphanage courtyard. Fog rolled in like a living thing. Shadows twisted. The trees groaned. And then, he appeared. Red Nose, stage 3, stepped into the light. Towering, gaunt. His teeth clicked with anticipation. Sister Evangeline stepped forward, sword in hand. Your time is over, monster. He grinned, mouth cracking wider, then charged. We split apart. Coraline and I flanked him while Corey activated a mirror trap. Bright beams of light exploded in his face. Grace threw salt laced with holy water, causing his skin to boil and blister. The nun struck. The silver sword slashed through his side, sizzling as it cut him. He howled, grabbed her, and ripped her in half. Blood sprayed like a fountain. Her top half hit the ground first, eyes wide in shock, still holding the blade. Coraline screamed. I grabbed the sword. No more! I lunged. Red Nose turned, caught me midair, and threw me like a doll into the chapel doors. Daryl rose weakly from the side, holding a jagged pipe. Hey, ugly! Red Nose turned. You forgot something. Daryl sprinted and shoved the pipe through his eye. The clown shrieked, twisted in agony. I scrambled to my feet and hurled the sword, right into his heart. The blade sank deep. Red Nose froze. His smile faltered, and then he began to melt. His body convulsed, bending in impossible ways. But before we could cheer, he changed. Stage unknown. The abomination. He screamed. His voice 1,000 voices. A baby's cry, a woman's wail, a man's final breath. Then the flesh cracked. His clown suit split open like an overripe fruit, revealing a ribcage made of human arms, twitching, reaching, clawing out of him. His spine extended, twisting into a centipede-like tail. His legs became bone stilts covered in skin masks. A carnival horn jutted from his shoulder, shrieking with every step. His face had no eyes now, just mouths. 5 of them, all filled with sharp, broken teeth and bleeding gums. But at the center, floating above the mass like a beacon of evil, that Red Nose, pulsing, glowing, beating like a heart. We ran. He followed, laughing, gurgling, crawling on all limbs. Then Stacy screamed. Her arm was caught by one of the reaching ribs. Rip, her entire arm was torn off. She collapsed, screaming in shock and agony. Help her! Coraline yelled. I grabbed Stacy. Coraline took her other side and we dragged her into the chapel. The creature couldn't enter. Not yet. We looked down at the survivors. Daryl was gone. Stacy maimed. Evangeline dead. Corey trembled. We stopped stage 3. But this isn't a stage. This is something else. I stared out through the cracked window. The abomination stood there, twitching, waiting, laughing. We need to find the final weakness, I said, or we all die next. Red Nose, Part 5, Death of Red Nose. The battle ripped through the orphanage grounds like a nightmare tearing through my skull. Everything was chaos, walls collapsing, books turning to ash, the chapel cross snapped clean in half. Blood smeared across cracked tiles. And then came the silence. That terrible, suffocating silence. The kind that makes you wish for screaming again. Stacy was on the ground, bleeding out, her only arm digging into the dirt. Her skin was pale, but her eyes, those still burned with fire. I can still help, she whispered, her breath sharp and broken. I turned and saw Coraline, holding Grace in her arms. Grace had slammed into the library door and hadn't moved since. Corey was next to them, trying to stay upright while bleeding badly from his side. And above us, he stood. Red Nose. His final form was something torn straight out of hell. I could barely believe what I was seeing. His skin, or whatever passed for it, was a rotting, rubbery mess, twisted with limbs in all the wrong places. Arms dragged across the ground, others jutted out from his hunched back like broken branches. His mouth, God, his mouth stretched sideways from his ear to his collarbone, lined with jagged, glassy teeth. It looked like someone had stitched together a body from nightmares and pumped it full of rage. Veins pulsed like vines on the outside of his body, twitching and alive. But that nose, that same bright red nose, still clean, still glowing. And that's when it hit me. I could barely breathe, my chest rising and falling too fast. My sweat made my shirt stick to me like a second skin. What if, I muttered, eyes locked on that stupid nose, what if we've been aiming at the wrong place this whole time? Coraline looked at me, dazed. What are you talking about? I took a shaky step forward. What if his heart was never in his chest? What if the joke was on us the whole time? What if his nose is his heart? There was a pause. Then Corey said, "The nose, that stupid nose. It's the only thing that never changed." I clenched my teeth. My hands trembled around the silver sword. "Then let's end the joke." Red Nose let out a garbled, wet roar and charged. But Stacy, bleeding, limping, dying, forced herself up and screamed, "Hey, you freak! I'm right here!" She ran straight at him, her face streaked with blood. He turned to her, grinning. A new toy. He lunged, sinking those nightmarish teeth into her shoulder. Not to kill, no, to drain. His stomach opened slightly, and I saw them, his second-stage teeth still nested inside, chattering and gnashing like they hadn't eaten in years. Stacy screamed, a scream that rattled through the entire orphanage. Her skin lost its color. Her legs gave out. "Go!" she yelled. "Mark! Do it!" I didn't think. I just roared. I sprinted forward, silver sword gleaming in my hands, and I didn't aim for the chest this time. I drove the blade straight into that glowing red nose. There was silence. A terrifying split-second pause. Then boom! Red Nose exploded. Blood, bones, black sludge, his entire body burst apart, coating the walls, the floor, all of us. I was flung back and slammed into the wall. My head rang like a bell. When I opened my eyes, the world had stopped spinning. Stacy wasn't moving. Coraline was holding her, sobbing. She did it," she cried. Corey dropped to his knees. Grace stirred and slowly sat up, her face streaked with silent tears. The joke was finally over, or so we thought. 10 years later, I'm 26 now. There's a scar running down my jaw, a little souvenir from that night. Coraline, my wife, sat beside me on the back porch. We were flipping burgers on the grill while the kids laughed in the yard, our boy Liam and our daughter Ivy. They were our whole world. Corey and Grace had come over earlier. Grace was in a sleek black wheelchair now, but she never let it slow her down. Her smile could light up a room. Corey was with their twin boys, Ethan and Noah, helping them with sparklers. The four of us, we were all that was left. Daryl was gone, Stacy too, but we never lost contact. We were family, even when the blood wasn't literal. Then the boys came running. "Daddy!" Liam shouted. "We saw something in the woods." "A man," Ethan chimed in. "He was standing behind a tree. He had a big red nose." The spatula slipped from my hand. I looked at Coraline. Her face went pale. "No, no way," she whispered. Corey froze. Noah stepped closer. He waved at us, but he didn't move his arm. He just shook like his bones were wrong. Ivy grabbed Liam's hand, holding tight. I turned toward the tree line. The sun was dipping below the horizon. A cold breeze passed through us, and then, from somewhere deep in the woods, I heard it. Honk. Honk.